Welcome to Plant Your Seed. I'm your host, Fred Ferris. On each episode, we share stories of how ordinary people have transformed their lives. Each story is compassionate, each story is authentic, and each story is a transformation. Here are the stories of the people who are changing our world by transitioning to a plant-based diet. Today, I share the story of Glen John Jones. Glen's a personal trainer and author of Think and Grow Vegan, a book about how to gradually adopt a plant-based diet in 5 stages. He was an avid meat eater who changed his diet when he started concentrating on endurance sports. Here's Glen's transformative story. Today on Plant Your Seed, we have Glen John Jones, the author of Think and Grow Vegan, a book about gradually transitioning to a plant-based diet in 5 stages. Glen's also a personal trainer in South London. Welcome, Glen.
Hi, Fred. How are you doing today?
I am great. How are you? How is everything there?
It's really good, thank you. Thanks a lot for having me on your show.
I've given our listeners a little piece of your plant-based story. Can you just give us an overview of your personal journey to a plant-based diet?
Yes. So it starts about 5 years ago, maybe 6, and I was kind of the opposite to a vegan. And by that I don't mean like an anti-vegan, because I never really cared about it that much to like hate anyone that did it, but I was really into like my meat, and I was a bit of an avid meat eater, and it went hand in hand with what I was doing at the time. So for a long time, being in the fitness industry, it's quite about the look. So for a long time I'd been doing weightlifting and trying to maintain this kind of physique, which was like your typical cover body, like that kind of look. And I was able to hold on to that for a long time. So I was completely content with the style of training and foods that I was eating. It was all well and good. And then just got this really strange kind of vibe to look into endurance sports as a bit of a challenge. And then that's kind of what took me on the journey to the plant-based diet, when I realized there's a lot of endurance athletes that don't kind of obsess over protein. They're very much more about like a really healthy diet, because everything has to be on point for them to perform for these events that they do.
Right.
And then I realized there's a lot of athletes who are thriving on this diet that do endurance sports. And I thought, okay, maybe I need to shift my focus from looking a certain way and feeling and performing a certain way, and then it all went from there.
Okay. Do you think that it's harder for men, just kind of from the masculinity point of view, it's kind of directly associated with meat consumption? Do you think it's harder for men to transition to a plant-based diet?
I would say so. And I think you've hit the nail on the head, because when you look at the statistics, it's something like 2/3 of vegans are female, against only 1 male. And the guys that do it are typically seen as kind of, weedy or feminine, or like annoying. So it kind of puts everyone into like this little box. So I think it's harder for people to maybe want to approach the subject if there's already that barrier. Whereas, for women, I'd say, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. If anyone said that they do it, it'd be okay. But, around the guys, it would be a bit of a stigma that this person is maybe inferior, or, they're lacking in testosterone or something like that. So I do think that kind of put me off wanting to attempt it for a while, to be completely honest with you. It took me about 6 months to get that out of my head before I even started to look into it.
Right, yeah,
I was loosely considering it, and then all of these different reasons to not do it came into my head, and that was probably one of them. So yeah, I'd have to agree.
Now, do you think that it's difficult for people changing to a plant-based diet to get all of the right calories, proteins, fats, carbs, micronutrients, kind of, as you say, eating to your goals?
I don't think so. If you're educated on what you can eat, I think the initial thing that people need to understand is if they're taking something out of their diet, i.e. meat or dairy or any other kind of nutrient that contains calories, they've got to kind of put that back in. And, you know, if you're living in, you know, a Western country or, you know, like a first world country, then you wouldn't think that you could become malnourished. But if you're not putting the right amount of calories into your body over an extended period of time, you might actually start to feel like you're not getting the right kind of nutrients. And then it's really easy to then look on the plant-based diet and say, oh, it's because of the plant-based diet, when really it's like an awareness of the amount of nutrients and calories that you're consuming on a regular basis. So it's very important to make sure that you're replacing whatever you're taking out of your diet with something else that has the equivalent calories. Unless you're, of course, trying to lose weight, then you need to be eating a little bit less than you're burning off. Sorry.
Right. So as a personal trainer, do you talk to people about their diets? Is that something that you kind of consult with them about? Is that one of the reasons they come to your studio, or is it just to work out and you just kind of leave it as be, and if somebody comes up to you and brings it to you, then you kind of expand on it?
Yeah, it's very funny because it's a local business. I have to be very careful with what I do. So if I come out all of a sudden, I'm like, hi everyone, I'm Glenn, I'm a vegan, this plant-based diet is amazing, everyone should do it, all my clients do it, then I probably would have maybe one client. Right. And everyone would leave me. So when I first started doing it, I didn't really talk about it too much, and it became one of those things where people would maybe find out when they'd dig a little deeper, when they'd realize that, you know, when I was educating them, I wasn't saying, right, go vegan. It would be more like, you need to eat more fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds. And then if it ever came up, you know, if they said, what about meat? Then I'd explain, well, you know, that's up to you, and, you know, protein, and I'd kind of break it down more like that. But then as the years went by, I just, you know, it was obvious that I wasn't going to be recommending it because I just didn't believe that it was necessary. And people would pick up on it, and some people would be a little bit anti-vegan. Like I think I've mentioned it in my book that one of my clients, when she found out, she said to me, if I knew you was vegan, I wouldn't have trained with you. She told me point blank. But there is the area that I live in is just outside of London, and it has a bit of a reputation for being like a little bit geezerish. So people are a little bit stuck in their ways. You've got the kind of London vibe going, but it's not like central London where it's like really, really liberal. So if you kind of poke your neck out and do something different to someone else where I'm from, you get called all sorts. So I really just had to approach it very carefully. But over time, I mean, since the book came out, say, you know, 6-7 months ago now, it's just gone brilliant. It's just been so good. And, you know, I'll have clients come to me and they're losing weight. And I'll say to them, like, what are you doing differently? And they're like, well, I think you've been rubbing off on me, mate, because I've stopped eating meat. I'm like, wow. And I've not even had that conversation with them. Right. And this has kind of happened over the years. I've had maybe 4 or 5 clients go vegan without me even telling them to do it. They've just done it, and they've done it really well. And then, you know, recently, since the book came out, it's happening even more. You know, people are just doing it with a lot more confidence because they're kind of following my step-by-step kind of thing in the book. So yeah, it's great. I don't really even have to talk about it with them unless they want to talk about it. Then I'm happy to speak to them. But I'm just kind of letting people find their own way.
Right. Now, you mentioned in the book, I guess it was losing friends or struggles that you had with friends. Can you give us an example of this? I mean, like, I know that you mentioned, like, say, the barbecue or the holiday and stuff like that in the book. But can you give us an example? I know that for me, sometimes it's just difficult eating with people or whatever because you're just trying to eat, you know, healthy, and other people are like, I just want a burger or whatever. What is your experience as far as friends accepting your vegan diet? Yeah,
I think it's not so much the diet, but it's the lifestyle as well. So I think vegans are put in like a category when they're looking at like why vegans are healthier, or why they get these certain things happen to them, or there's less chance. They've started to put them more into like a box and say, well, someone's plant-based, they're more likely to exercise, not smoke, not drink. They probably do yoga, they probably meditate, and they have like-minded kind of friends that are on that path. So I think it was more to do with the fact that I kind of changed other things as well. I became more kind of passionate and more consistent with my own goals, with my training, and I didn't drink, so I don't drink anymore. And it was kind of more of the pushback of being around everyone not drinking, and I didn't really get much stick about the plant-based food. It's only when, like you say, it's that kind of feeling when you can be on your own sometimes, if you're at a wedding or at a barbecue or you're on a plane, and you feel like a little bit of the odd one out. But you just kind of have to just take that upon yourself and make it your responsibility to make sure that you're eating to what you want. And if you want to really, really not stand out, and you want to seem like a really nice person, then you bring something to the party for everyone, or wherever you are. So in the book, I mentioned that, I wanted to make everyone feel like comfortable. So, I brought a big salad to this barbecue, and I brought my own food as well. But, I also contributed. I didn't just do the usual, like when I was going to barbecues in the past, I'd turn up with meat and sausages and, rolls and all the rest of it. Obviously, I wasn't going to do that now. So what was, I was just going to supply something different. So, and they ate it. So that's good.
Yeah. So I guess throughout the book, you seem kind of non-confrontational about the whole being vegan. And why do you feel that this is the best way to go about it?
I've been thinking about it so much lately because of how vegan has been rebranded as plant-based in the mainstream. And now people are trying to kind of change plant-based into something different, mostly non-vegans. So it's kind of getting moved around a lot. But I think, I found that my initial stigma of vegans were they were all going to be the same. They were going to be scruffy. They were going to be like really shouty, unhealthy, and just like not my cup of tea. And then one of my friends is he's a really smart guy, and he's been a vegan for about 7 years or so. When I first loosely mentioned to him that I was considering it, and prior to that, I realised that he's a nice guy. He's very educated. He's fit, and being around him, I realised that he would never talk about the vegan thing to anyone. But everyone would take the mick out of him. So this is when I was working in the gym, and he was another personal trainer. And I realized that it'd be everyone else saying things to him, but him never saying things to them. Right. And he'd kind of like take it well, and, he'd sometimes bite back for a little bit of banter and stuff. But I realized that he portrayed it to me as this kind of inviting thing where it's like, cool, they're not that bad after all. I'm going to go and look into this myself because it's not what I thought it was. And then I realized that a lot of the time people would say to me that they don't like it they don't like it being rammed down their throat, that they're not doing, that someone's doing something different to them. So, I've always thought like live and let live, really. And as long as it's not hurting someone. So I decided to approach this in like the least cynical way as possible, and the most, I guess, inclusive way, so people could, pick up this book and think, it's nice to have a companion here, not someone who's berating me and telling me I'm a bad person. And don't get me wrong, when I said like I've been thinking about it a lot lately, I've been thinking a lot about the people who are a little bit more extreme, because they have done. The reason why it's so big now and so well known is because of these people. So it's a really strange situation where they've got the message out there over years and years and years. They've moved the needle, but unfortunately it just didn't appeal to the mainstream as such. But it kind of kept it going, and so it's funny. It's there's this, it swings and roundabouts. There's fors and against, I think, but I think most people would be approaching it in a non-confrontational way, or just not caring about things that much, just getting on with it.
Right. Now, you mentioned rebranding of the kind of the plant-based thing with, I guess, everything from forks over knives to game changers. I always think of it as plant-based is the diet, and vegan is more of the lifestyle.
Yeah.
What's your feeling on that?
I interpret it the same as you, and that's exactly what I think of it. But since Game Changers, there's obviously been such a pushback from non-vegans. Some people just really are against it, against like the plant-based thing in general.
Why do you think that is?
I think when people, and I've been in this situation myself, as I've got older, I've learned how to get around it. But when you don't understand something, you don't like it.
Right.
So, and most of the time, you don't understand something if you've not done any research, or you've just not looked into it at all. You've just put up this barrier and just said, no, this isn't for me. And I think a lot of it to do, I think it's that, which is the biggest reason. People just don't understand it and they don't want to embrace it. But, you know, as I've got older, I've realized that when you feel that way about something and it's a little bit of frustration because you just don't get it, but it's because you know nothing about it. So you need to just look at the fors and against. Even now, you know, I'm not like an avid vegan. I think that, you know, I don't think it's the answer to everything, but I do think it's important to know both sides of the coin and then make your own mind up. And, you know, unless you just want to keep doing the same thing all the time.
Right. Yeah. And that's one of those things that the more I research and the more I understand, there's a huge disconnect with people and their food. Do you find that as well?
Yeah. Like just today, I was walking in the supermarket and I went past the cold deli section and I got like this kind of like whiff, like this smell. And I looked at it and it just looks so unappealing, you know.
Yeah.
But that is kind of not in its raw form, because if it was in its raw form, it would, you know, it's like, I don't know what it is. It's blood, you know, cow or something. I don't know, but it would be hairy and it would be big and it would, you know, be walking around eating grass. But, you know, it's like, it looks really fleshy and it smells and I was looking at it, I was thinking, that just doesn't look nice. You know, when there's so many like pretty dishes now that you see on Instagram,
right.
Standards have gone up a little bit now. But, you know, even more so, like you say, the disconnect when you see something in like live form, you know, I don't think there's many humans that salivate at the sight of a live walking animal. It's strange because even when I had educated myself on the ethical side of things, I still couldn't stop myself from eating protein bars because of the packets that they're in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I know, you know, that's whey protein, and I'd seen where milk comes from, and you know, I just thought, I don't want to drink raw milk, but I could still eat these protein bars, and it just got so much further away. You know, it's that disassociation from actually where it is, like you're talking about. But you know, the more shiny something looks, and the more further away from what it is, the more appealing it seems. It's so strange, even when you know where it's coming from. You know, took a while to get over that.
Right, right. Now, in your book, your 5 stages are reduced, pescatarian, vegetarian, mostly vegan, and vegan. How did you go through those? If you could just tell our listeners how you kind of went through those stages and how you came up with that.
Yes, I wanted to do it in a way that seemed achievable and sustainable for someone. And it was pretty much my journey. So I thought, I know this is how it went for me and I feel amazing. So maybe I can help someone go on this same path. And I've spoken to a lot of people who had tried to give up meat or all animal products at once and just kind of then flip-flopped and gone back the other way. And then just decided, no, it's the diet. It's all the diet. You know, it's not good for you, you know, and all the rest of it. Mm-hmm. And I've done research and I realized how many people would go vegan or go vegetarian and then go back to eating meat. And it was quite a high percentage. And then, you know, you'd have people that would yo-yo. So I thought, right, so maybe it's more of a gradual approach. And I approach that system as if it was a client. Because, you know, if I have a client that comes to me and they say, I want to lose this much weight in this amount of time and I want to be able to lift this weight, and, you know, but where they are at that moment in time is so far away, and it's just unrealistic. It's not going to happen.
Right.
So I wanted to kind of gradually guide someone through the process that would be more sustainable and achievable for them. So, you reduce your meat initially, like pretty much most people could probably do that tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I use that also as a way to help people that weren't open to going vegan, but would be interested in just reducing their animal products. So I wanted that to be a way to kind of get everybody involved. And then from there, if you like how you feel, if you're following like the advice in my book and other things that you come across, you can go to pescatarian and then see how you feel when you are just on the fish, and then you can reduce that, get rid of that eventually, move down to vegetarian, see how you go. Then mostly vegan is something that I hadn't seen so much of before, because it would seem that many people would go vegetarian to vegan.
Mm-hmm.
But in mostly vegan, I saw that as a way to consciously try and make way to a vegan diet, knowing everything to that point. But I used it as another way of kind of getting people to eat more whole food, plant-based, and not relying on the kind of processed vegetarian foods that are really easily accessible. So, and I thought, just break it down, just give that little bridge between those two might make it more easy for people as well, because a lot of the things that I would hear from people when I was writing the book was it was the cheese or it was the chocolate. They just couldn't give it up, or eggs or something like that. So I had to build a bridge between vegetarian and vegan for people to understand that, you don't have to just go boom straight into that and just stop eating that altogether. But, do it like you did with the reduce, where you just slowly make your way. And if you like how you feel, then you can go to the next stage. So it's a very kind of gradual approach, but one that I hope that people can, without sounding cheesy, to quote the name of the book, but kind of grow into a title as they're going along.
Right. Now, how long would you say somebody listening that's a meat eater, how long do you think that it would take them to go through the 5 stages?
For me, it took 6 months. And that's coming from my background, knowing a lot about nutrition and being around kind of body composition, using foods to manipulate look and performance. I don't know if that went against me. I might have overcomplicated it a little bit. I wouldn't want to put a time frame on it, to be honest with you. I think that people will take it as it comes. You might get some people that can do it in a month. Some people might jump a couple of stages in a week. But I wouldn't put a time frame on it, because I think that as long as someone is actively, like they initially reduce their meat intake and they're eating more whole food, plant-based, then hopefully they will feel better. And then if they feel better, hopefully they're going to feel more confident to then make their way to plant-based if they want to. But I wouldn't want to put a time limit on it at all. I think people will find it a way around their routine and their lifestyle and their family life and training and stuff like that. I think that would be best to not put pressure on yourself like that. So
just kind of slow and steady wins the race.
Absolutely. And that's what I found over the years with clients. The people that start off slower and kind of listen more always do best.
Right.
The ones that come in and are like all guns blazing and talking loads and not really listening to what I'm saying, and all of that stuff, it never really works out long term.
Right.
So I think applying that to the vegan diet is a really good idea, because if you do it well and you feel good about it, with the kind of food you're eating, you are going to feel amazing, hopefully better than you did before. So slow and steady wins the race for sure.
Yeah, I find it's hard to describe to people how different you feel. Do you have any way that you tell people, like, you have more energy, you feel great, you know what I mean? I don't know, some people say that they work out more because they just have so much energy, they just want to kind of do something. They don't want to sit on the couch. Has that been your experience?
Yeah. I find it, like, sometimes I feel like I don't want to answer with this kind of blanket answer of, yeah, it's been brilliant since I've been on a plant-based diet, because, there's so many other factors involved. If you're getting a good amount of sleep, and if you're training more often, and, you've got your goals, you've got like work goals and things, and you're working well and you're happy, and with relationships and stuff like that plays a massive part in mood and how you feel. But overall, the initial things I noticed was, like you say, just a lot more energy. And I noticed it from being around other people. I'm not like this kind of excitable child, right? I'm bouncing around. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, them days are over, but I do have a lot more energy and I feel lighter on my feet. And it's more of a dynamic feeling in regards to fitness. So instead of just being kind of like strong for like weightlifting, and I feel like I can do pretty much most things now to a good standard. So I feel very much more dynamic. And the weight loss, like I lost weight when I stopped lifting loads of weight, lifting heavy weights and started doing endurance sports. And that was a massive thing as well, and you can obviously lose weight on a normal diet. But that just came alongside, doing more endurance based exercises and eating more whole food plant based, and just felt so much better for being a little bit slimmer. And yeah, it was that feeling of more energy all day long is nice.
So getting back to that, you mentioned that you lost weight. Did you lose like strength or bulk, or was it just kind of bloatedness, or I don't know what what does that mean?
Yeah, initially it was weight and bulk that just kind of went off me, the mass. I think I went from 94 kilos, sorry I don't know it in pounds, down to about went down to 94 down to about 83 quite quickly, and I've been holding on to that weight for a very long time. And then the strength started to go, but I've realized over time, and I'm very much more aware of it now, that, fitness is so specific to what it is you're trying to achieve at the time. So your nutrition does play a part in that, but it's the skill that you're trying to build. So if you're just focusing on being strong, then you will get strong, especially if you know a little bit about how to get there, with your programming and you're being consistent and hardworking. If you want to get fit, then you will do the right things to help get you fit, but you can't always be everything all at once. So when I shifted my goals from weights to like predominantly, swimming, cycling and running, like for triathlon based sports, I just noticed that obviously I did lose quite a fair bit of strength. But then I realized it's because I'm not necessarily focusing on that. And if you flip it the other way, when I was doing my weights, I wasn't fit mm-hmm. because I wasn't focusing on that. So the diet plays a big part in like the very kind of top side of that. When you're trying to get that little bit extra out and you've been doing it for a long time and you want to feel better, then it plays a part in it. But you'll lose strength if you're not focusing on it. Since I've been on a plant-based diet, every time I do go through a little strength cycle, when I'm off season in between events, mm-hmm. I get stronger. And it feels like the gains are exactly the same rate as what they was when I was eating meat. It's just that I'm not focusing on it all the time now. So what's that old saying? Jack of all trades, master of none.
Right.
Sometimes fitness can be a bit like that. But when you just focus on one thing, you can really get a lot out of yourself. Humans are just amazing when they're really focusing on one thing. You can just get brilliant at anything. Practice makes perfect. So that's one thing I'd like to say to a lot of people is, as long as you're focusing on being strong, you probably won't notice too much of a difference going plant-based unless you just stop doing strength training. And you just got to make sure you're getting the right amount of calories in. You just got to make sure that you're replacing your calories with that you're taking out with other stuff. But yeah, it's fitness is very specific.
Right. Now, in the book, you mentioned that your mental endurance, and not only your endurance in sports, but your mental endurance, that you concentrate longer, more effectively, or more efficiently. Can you give us an example of that?
Yeah. This is really weird because remember writing, I don't think I wrote it in the book, but when I was lifting weights all the time and I was eating like a lot of meat, I I used to feel like I just wanted to kind of like pick up heavy weights, eat loads of meat, and then recharge and then do it all again. Didn't really want to sit down on a laptop because my mind, I don't know why, I don't know if it's testosterone just pumping through your body or what, but I just couldn't sit on a laptop and all of a sudden be all calm. But when it came to then going through the process of, say, cardiovascular exercise and, running and eating more, whole foods and a lot more vegetables and a lot more fruits, I would find I'd be able to sit down and, like, I've had a conversation with a couple of clients before called bum endurance, where you sit down on a laptop and you just relaxed. It's like a different type of endurance, but it's like, you're just chilling and you're just using your brain. And I'd just be so much calmer, and just so much more collected. And I wasn't sure if it was the food or the fact that I was able to actually think while I was exercising. It's a bit like a meditative state when you're running. You kind of get in a bit of a trance. But when you're doing a lot of heavy weights, it's just like, it's all aggression and, and then you put it down and then you're resting in between sets and then you do it again. So you're kind of thinking about stuff, but you're switching off quite a lot as well when you're doing your sets to get quite, angry to do it. But when you're doing endurance sport, you're just like really chilled and you're just processing these thoughts. And then when it comes to actually sitting down, you're actually quite rested and you're looking forward to it. And your brain is just working. So I think that combination of just feeling lighter and just maybe not as like aggressive, all played a part. I don't know how much the diet has in that, but of course it all kind of combines with changing the goals.
Yeah. I think it all goes hand in hand. Basically, that your mental clarity seems to, as well as your, I would guess, fitness level seems to increase as you go more and more to a whole food plant-based diet.
Yeah.
Now, what are some of the misconceptions that you believe to be true before researching and writing your book?
Yeah. One of them was you can't get protein and things. That was like a big thing. I wondered if it was possible to kind of emulate the amount of protein that you could eat on a meat diet in a vegan diet, which turns out to be true. It's obviously just not as concentrated when you're eating many foods. There's only so many beans you can eat.
Right. Yeah.
And lentils. But then it goes back to how much protein do you actually need? So I guess that's the one that everyone always thinks of first is the protein. Because I just realized over time, just didn't need as much protein as I thought you did to kind of just get by or to look a certain way. Other things that I thought were true was that all vegans get ill all the time. And
really?
Coincident. Yeah.
I find that to be the opposite, but
oh, really? Yeah, this is going back quite a few years now. But I just assumed that they were malnourished because of, again, I guess the protein thing. It was like meat is king. That is what it seemed to be like before. So I believe that to be true, and then I've realised, coincidentally, I've never been less ill in my whole life since adopting the diet. I guess the other one is, without, like I said, looking into it, I used to think that veganism was very extreme. I felt like if you was a vegan, or if you was going to take it on, you almost had to take the world on your shoulders.
Right.
And like I say, there's all different kind of factions to that and how people approach it, but that's not true either. So turns out you can just eat vegan and get on with it.
Right. Do you think that the movie Game Changers kind of changed that, and Forks Over Knives as well? Some of the movies or documentaries. Do you think that that's changed kind of the perception of being vegan and therefore has made it more attractive?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I think seeing it so well made and so well put together just saves people so much time. But as I was writing my book, I was obviously like trawling the internet, study after study, try and like back up what I was writing, and I was kind of condensing it down into the most easy possible way.
Mm-hmm.
But those films are very memorable. You know, you remember a lot from them, and you know, Forks Over Knives is taking it from a health standpoint, and that just really helps a lot of people, because you know, it's not likely you're going to come home if you're not vegan. You're not really thinking about doing it, and then it's very unlikely you're going to come home and just start typing in that stuff into the internet and reading research papers after a long day at work.
Right.
But when it's just been condensed down into like interviews, and it's well made, and it's on Netflix, and it just completely just makes it super convenient for people, which is a big misconception in the another misconception for people is that it's extremely inconvenient, the diet, and the fact that some people think you have to be a bit of a scientist to know it all, or like super extreme. But yeah, those documentaries are brilliant.
Yeah, is it also a kind of a misconception that it's very expensive? I don't find that to be the case. Do you find that to be the case?
Oh my God, no! It's so much cheaper than the amount of meat that I was eating before. I can't remember exactly how much it was, but when I stopped eating meat, I did realise that, oh my God, it was costing me a lot of money. You know, every week buying beef and eggs and chicken and fish, salmon and things like that, and that would really add up. And it only got to the point that I'd look at my receipt after buying all my shopping. I'd be looking at the most expensive bits, and in the past I'd always think it was a need, you had to have that.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I realised, oh my God, that's the most expensive thing, it kind of all started to add up. And like my weekly shop now is somewhere in the region of maybe £50. So that's probably around $60, $70 for like a week's food.
Right.
And that's like an average thing. So, unless I go out to eat, but that's what's in my house, like 50 quid's worth of food. It's not much, but before it was probably 100 because of all the other food, all the meat.
Right.
It's bad. Yeah.
I got a couple more questions. One, when you talk about in the book, the beginning of your journey, talk about eating bacon and having this feeling.
Yeah.
It was kind of just a gut feeling or whatever. Can you just describe that feeling? Was it like, were you feeling like actually physically sick, or was it just something that was just like, I just don't feel right?
Yeah, I was feeling sick because it all coincided with that video that I saw of a little pig this is when I was still eating meat, but
right.
I just saw this video on Facebook, and it just popped up on my feed. I was just scrolling one day, just looking for a laugh, really, and then it wasn't a laugh, and it was this little piglet on this girl's shoulder, and the girl was singing to this piglet,
mm-hmm.
and they were both crying, and it was so weird, and I don't know why, but I just stopped and watched it, and considering normally I'd have just flicked through that. And then around that time, I knew that something wasn't right, because I just started to get that vibe, like I couldn't eat the bacon anymore. And it was just the sight of bacon after I'd cooked it was strange. It was so pink and everything. And I don't know why, but like eating it, and I'd be like chewing it, and it would kind of make my tummy feel weird as I was chewing it. And I tried changing oil. I tried coconut oil. I tried olive oil, and I was like mixing things up. And I was thinking, what is going on? Because I'd always kind of eaten bacon and eggs, as you do.
Right.
And then I remembered this one thing that came into my head from when I was a kid, and I'd never even thought about it since. But that program Miami Ink.
Yeah. There's
like a tattoo program, and I remember the tattooists, like the juniors and stuff. They'd always say, "Oh, when we're practicing, we practice on a pig skin." So they go out and buy a pig skin and then tattoo it to practice, because pig skin is apparently the closest thing to human skin.
Right.
And it just started to get into my head. And then there's someone else told me this story about when pigs like skin is burning, apparently it smells like humans.
Really?
And that's what I heard through a couple of people who had kind of been around those kind of situations. And I just thought, this is all just starting to add up here.
Right.
I don't think I want to eat this anymore. It's making me feel weird. So I just felt sick. And then it was really strange, because after pig, there wasn't a time limit on it or anything like that, but it just started to happen to every single meat. It just started to feel the same way about it. Just wouldn't be able to chew it, and then just literally that feeling, when you stop chewing and then you just spit in the bin.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just like, oh, I can't do this. And, I'd never thrown any food away in my whole life, ever. I'd even cleaned other people's plates. I can't see food go to waste. So it was a real kind of shocker for me. I thought, what is going on here? I feel really ungrateful, that I've got these foods here and stuff, but I'm throwing them in the bin. This is mad.
In the section in your book, noteworthy things to take your knowledge further, you mentioned, which I found this very interesting, you mentioned you did a lot of unfollowing on social media.
Yeah.
Why was that?
So when I wrote the book, I've had this conversation with a couple of people where it's almost like I was in the vegan closet. I wasn't talking about it to anyone. So I wasn't following any, say, vegan pages. And I'd never really been to any vegan events. So I'd never gone to a vegan event, never following any vegan pages. The only vegan I knew was my friend that I told you about.
Right.
So I was kind of laying low. And I wasn't kind of trying to take in any information from anywhere. It was just going to be my book, and I was just going to get all my influences as I went along, without following all these other vegan pages and stuff. I didn't want it to be, picking up all the other thing.
Right. So
along that same time, I did the same thing with certain people on my Instagram that I'd picked, and other apps that I'd kind of just, I don't know, accumulated as I've gone along. So like in the early days, it was just kind of like, when Instagram first came out, it was more about being impressionable and kind of showing off, I think. Mm-hmm. And, as I was trying to write my book and trying to keep my head kind of like clear and just focused on goals, I just would go on my page and I'd see these people that were maybe selling something, or they were just a little bit, cheesy, or, just a bit egotistical. Right. I just unfollowed loads of people because I just wanted to keep my mind really clear on what it was that I was trying to do. And I didn't want to take in any information that I just didn't think was genuinely going to help write this book. Right. And it's strange how I kind of got that in the book, but I think it was because you're very easily influenced by the things that you see now. Your brain's like a bit of a sponge. And if you're not careful, you'll just keep taking all this stuff in. And I had the same thing happen when I was first getting into personal training. I followed all of these gurus, gone on their mailing lists and all the rest of it. And in 1 week, I think I had about 3 or 4 emails from about 3 or 4 of these different gurus. One person said foam rolling's good. The other one said it's bad. The other one said it's not sure. And it just got so confusing, and it was before I'd got any hands-on experience and stuff. And I just found it so confusing that, like, there's all this information out there, but which one do you go for, So it's more about, I think, just like we said before, just finding what you do and don't like, and then just making a decision based on the fors and against.
Right. I mean, I love the idea that you basically cleansing your mind as well as your body in that kind of atmosphere with social media. It's like whether or not you follow, I don't know, vegan websites or Instagrams or handles or whatever. But I just find that's something that there's a lot of toxicity out there on social media. That I just think that people are just better off just not seeing it. And like you said, the brain is a sponge. So whether you think that you're taking it in or not, some part of you is taking it in, and it might rub you the wrong way and just, irritate you, or you might find something wrong with it, and kind of set your mood off in a different way. So I really think that's a great idea to just kind of go through your social media and just kind of reevaluate.
Yeah, it's so influential. You can be so easily coerced. I've had a couple of situations where I've bought stuff online from like this amazing video that I've seen. And I'm like, wow, this is so good. I've got to have this, and then I've never used it. It's so influential. And just recently, I followed a lot of pages. Like I said, when I kind of got the book out and got the seal of approval, I followed a lot of pages. So I started following a lot of vegan pages to kind of get up to speed. And I thought, wow, all this stuff's out there. All these people are doing this stuff. And then it wasn't before long that I just started cutting back again because, it was almost like just an understanding of, this is what I do and don't like. I'm a lot more welcoming and open about it now. I don't mind people knowing that I've been on a vegan diet for 5 years, but, it's not going to hurt anyone. It's not going to hurt me now or anyone, but I just realized I don't, just because I'm plant-based or I'm vegan, it doesn't mean that I'm going to like someone because they're the same.
Exactly.
So when I added like people before to try and, just see what was out there more and just get a general vibe, I just, I've ended up doing it again where I've cut back because certain things I just didn't agree with. And I thought, that's just the way of the world, isn't it? It'd be boring if we're all the same.
Yeah, exactly. As a personal trainer, like, I don't know, people have known forever it's diet and exercise, right? That's how you stay healthy. Well, we've been told this, I can't even like imagine how many times, but why do you think people don't listen to this simple advice? I mean, everybody, people get up at 5 a.m, go running, but why won't they look at their diet? Do you think it's the misinformation or just the information of what's healthy and what's not healthy? Or do you think it's just people set in their ways? Or, I mean, as a personal trainer, you probably see it a lot more than most people.
Yeah. There's many things that come into it. But people really don't like inconvenience. So anything that's new seems to be an inconvenience. And I've had people sit down with me before. I've had guys and you've got them on the scales and it's done a body composition reading and it's come back there, like a really high risk with their visceral fat reading. They could be, they're very high. It's not good. They're at high risk of stroke or, some sort of heart disease.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll sit there and say, right, I want to do this because I need to do this for my daughter. And I've got this and all this stuff. And then you'll say to them, like, okay, well, just do me a favor. You'll ask them, what is the one thing that you're eating now that you think is going against your goals? And they might go, oh, biscuits or something like that.
Yeah, ice
something
cream.
Something really, really obvious that they know. Everyone knows you can't eat that all the time.
Right.
But then they'll go, oh yeah, ice cream. And then you'll go, okay, well, just do me a massive favor. Just don't eat ice cream this week. And let's see how you go. Okay. Just for 1 week, just see if you can do it for me. And then you'll see them the next week and you'll be like, oh, how you doing? Yeah, well, good. Did you eat ice cream this week? And they'll go, yeah. And they'd have done it every day, and they just haven't changed. They've had this realization, oh God, I'm at high risk of some sort of issue. And I want to do this for my family, my marriage, my kids, blah, blah, blah. It's like an ultimatum to themselves, but they still can't stop doing the thing because they're just caught up in what they would consider to be convenience.
Mm-hmm.
Their body has found this natural way of living, that it likes to feel at consistently. So, they get to a certain point where they realize I can consume this without thinking about it too much. I can consume this amount of calories, do this amount of exercise and be this way with people and get this result, and they've got they're earning a living, they've got a roof over their heads and all the rest of it. And that's it. They're just not massively bothered once they realize that they can perform at work and provide for their family and stuff. Everything else is just like, oh, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
Obviously not everyone's like that, but the worst cases I've found are, they're a little bit scared to change because they just don't know how it's going to affect them. But eating is very much an emotional thing. You're not hungry enough to eat yourself to the point of being overweight, really. You're just not. There's an emotional trigger. But the best thing about like whole foods, plant-based is you can't binge on broccoli.
Right.
You can't, and there's only so many, you can only eat maybe 2 apples in one go, So if you have that kind of nutritional protocol where you say, I'm only going to eat plant-based foods, then you got a less chance of going crazy, because foods that are high in fiber and high in water are just impossible to eat loads of. So, but yeah, I think it's a real. I think for people it's inconvenience. They're just too scared to change. Just don't know what's going to happen to them. With their energy levels at work and things like that.
Right. Now, finally, can you give me one word to describe how you felt before you became vegan, and one word to describe how you feel now that you are vegan?
That's cool. Before I went vegan, probably it's somewhere between, I think, erratic. I think I had a lot of energy, but not being used in the right places.
Mm-hmm.
And then now, I would say, I'd say a lot more balanced. Yeah, balance is something that I've been really working towards, and it's definitely been made possible with this lifestyle, for sure.
Nice. It's been such a pleasure speaking with you. I mean, I love the book. It's very conversational, very easy to understand. It's got great practical advice, and it's real. You know what I mean? It's not coming from a place of preachiness or anything like that. I really did enjoy it. And again, it's called Think and Grow Vegan. Glen John Jones. Can you just give our listeners the best way to reach out to you, either on Instagram, the web, or wherever on social media? Yeah,
brilliant. Thanks so much, Fred. So I'd say at the moment I'm using my Instagram for a lot of stuff. So at Glen John Jones is my personal handle, and then at Think and Grow Vegan, you can get me on there as well. And my website is thinkandgrowvegan.com. So they're the best places to get hold of me, for sure.
All right, great. Thank you so much for being part of the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was really good talking to you, mate, and really appreciate you asking me so many questions about the book. I can tell you've read it and you've really digested it. It's great.
Hope you are inspired by this story, and remember, it's never too late to plant your seed. Links to everything we talked about on the podcast can be found on Instagram at plant.yourseed in the show notes tab in the bio. If you enjoyed the show, remember to leave us a review, and until next time, thank you for listening.